A simple act of kindness. It was a cold autumn morning in Paris. The kind of morning where the air tastes like rain and espresso, and everyone seems to be rushing somewhere important. Inside the Montparnasse train station, a small cafe sat tucked in the corner. Warm light spilled through fogged-up windows, and the soft clink of porcelain cups broke the silence. A man in his 40s walked in, carrying a brown leather briefcase and a calm, practiced air. He chose a seat by the window, a place where he could watch the platforms and people passing by, as if he had seen too much of the world himself. He ordered 2 warm croissants and a cup of cappuccino. When the waiter placed them on his table, the buttery scent filled the air, rich, comforting, and familiar. He opened his newspaper, took a slow sip of his coffee, and waited for his train. Then, the door opened again. A man stepped in, older, wearing a worn-out coat, with tired eyes that had seen too many cold mornings. He looked around, uncertain but not desperate, and finally took a seat at the same table. The man with the newspaper looked up, nodded politely. The other man nodded back. For a brief moment, they shared silence, the quiet kind that exists between strangers. Then it happened. The older man reached out, took one of the croissants from the plate, and broke it in half. He started eating, slowly, almost with reverence. The man with the newspaper froze. His first instinct was surprise, maybe even irritation. But then he looked closer, at the trembling hands, and the way the stranger chewed, as if every bite meant warmth, safety, or memory. Without a word, he waved to the waiter and ordered 2 more croissants. When they arrived, he gently pushed the plate a little closer to the stranger. No conversation, no judgment, just quiet understanding. The 2 men sat there for a while, sharing coffee, sharing silence. Somewhere outside, a train horn echoed. Time moved on, but for that moment the world felt still. A few minutes later, the announcement came. The man folded his newspaper, took one last sip of coffee, and smiled. He stood, nodded once more to the stranger, and walked toward the platform. The older man looked up, watching him disappear into the crowd. Then, for the first time that morning, he smiled too. A few hours later, as the train began to move, the man reached into his bag to find his ticket. And there it was. His own croissant, still neatly wrapped inside. He froze. The pastry on the cafe table hadn't been his at all. He had eaten the stranger's breakfast. And yet that stranger had quietly shared it back without saying a word. He leaned back in his seat, the city slowly fading outside the window. For the first time in a long while, he felt something simple, something human. Sometimes, kindness doesn't need to speak. It just needs to exist. So, the next time you sit down for your morning coffee, maybe look around. You never know whose small act of grace might be waiting quietly beside you. And if this story warmed your heart, share it with someone who could use a reminder that kindness still lives in this world. And don't forget to subscribe to Kelvin's Heart Tales. because the next story might just change the way you see your own.